Welcome to the Fighting on Film podcast, the podcast all about classic and obscure war movies, from the Normandy landings to the days of chivalry and swords. If it's been captured on film, we're going to try and cover it. I'm Robbie of RM Military History.
I'm Matthew Moss of Historical Firearms and the Armourer's Bench.
Hello, welcome back to Fighting on Film. We all hope you're enjoying Masters of the Air, and we have a review series that you can go and listen to now, covering episodes 1 and 2. And then by next week's episode of the regular show on Wednesdays, episode 3 will be nearly out. However, this week we are back with the Patreon pick, the film chosen by our cast members over on Patreon. And it was a close call on the vote this month, Matt, with Murphy's War just pipping 1964's The Thin Red Line with 37% of the vote. And also,
that's wild. Wouldn't have guessed that.
Exactly. No, it was so close. I think the other two movies we had were Jack Boots on Whitehall, the animated one that you picked, and War Machine, the Brad Pitt satirical take on the American occupation of Iraq. Yeah. Afghanistan, I think. Yeah. No,
so what made you choose Murphy's War for this month's?
Yeah, it was my pick. So I saw it years ago. I think I caught it on like ITV or Channel 4 or something. And all I remember was seeing a guy fly in this seaplane and attack a U-boat. And I switched channel. I don't know why. I just did. So I never saw it in its entirety. So I always remembered it. I always remembered it. And then I think it got a Blu-ray release a few years ago. And I've always thought the art of O'Toole's face with the hat on always looked really cool. So I've always wanted to do it. And that's why it was put on there. And Matt's back from SHOT Show, everyone. So he's with us again. Yeah. Clever scheduling. You never knew.
You see, Rob held the fort, so no one will have known, other than the fact that we mentioned it like twice.
Yeah, and the loads of tweeting you were doing. I'm in Las Vegas.
Yeah. No, it was a good trip. Good trip. Lots of interesting stuff seen.
Great.
Some interesting firearms and military stuff. So it was worth the 16-hour traveling.
Crikey. Lots of war movies watched, we hope, on the plane.
You know what? There just wasn't that. For once, there wasn't a very good choice in terms of war movie underrepresentation. Yeah.
Oh dear. They didn't know they had one of the UK's consummate war movie reviewers on their plane. Or they
weren't ready for me. Yeah.
They sorted you something out.
Rob's like, watch Murphy's War on the plane. I'm like, I doubt they're gonna have
I was adamant they'd have that on Delta Airlines or whatever you were on. But we should actually mention that it is free on Prime Video in the UK. For UK listeners to watch if you have a Prime account, which is good. No affiliation, just letting you know where you can find it. So Matt, you're on cast this week. So regale us.
I am. It's a relatively svelte cast, actually.
Lean is the word. I think.
Yeah, just gonna go through the four main principles. Of course, the cast is led by Peter O'Toole, who plays Murphy, who is an Irish aircraft mechanic with the Royal Navy, the Fleet Air Arm. And interestingly, from my sort of like research around the film, originally Frank Sinatra was actually attached to play the role, but he turned it down. And then the production company behind the film offered it to Robert Redford, who would have been an interesting choice.
Yeah, it would have been.
Allegedly, it was also offered to Lee Marvin and Warren Beatty, and I believe Beatty turned it down because he wanted more money.
Marvin's the only one out of them that I think would have done this justice, apart from O'Toole.
Yeah, Marvin could have carried it in an interesting way. Like him doing an Irish accent would have been interesting too.
It would have been good.
We'll talk about Peter's Irish accent in a bit, I'm sure.
It's not as better as his later work, I must admit. It's not. He sounds like Lily Savage at points to me. I don't know why.
There's some real lapses into Scouse, that's for sure.
It does. It really does.
Yeah, so obviously Peter O'Toole, best known for Lawrence of Arabia in 1962, Lord Jim in 65, Night of the Generals in 67, Power Play in 78, which is a film that Rob's
that well known
mentioned.
I like
mentioned a couple
Play.
of times.
It's good. We should do it on the show.
With Donald Pleasance and then we got Zulu Dawn in 79 and Hitler: Rise of Evil in 2003, and then the last sort of war movie-ish movie he appeared in was Troy in 2004.
Ah, yeah. One of the greats.
Um,
One of the greats.
Absolutely. Then we've got Sean Phillips, who plays Dr. Hayden, who is a Quaker doctor who is on the island, and she kind of nurses him back to health.
Yeah.
She was a Wren extra in The Longest Day.
Ooh,
Um, she also played Clementine Churchill in Winston Churchill: The Wilderness Years in 1981.
nice.
And she played Smiley's wife in Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy and Smiley's People in
Very nice.
79 and 82. Philippe Noiret plays Louis Brezon, um, who is a French. I think is he an oil worker, or he's working for some company on the island.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
been there about 6 years. The company's
He's a
forgotten
bit of a
about him more or
vagabond,
less.
isn't he, really? He's a bit
He
of a
is, yeah.
yeah.
Um, he played Inspector Moran in Night of the Generals with O'Toole in 67. He was in Old Gun in 75, The Desert of the Tartars in 1976, and Fort Sagan with Gérard Depardieu in 1984.
Nice.
So he's a French actor with an incredible career. He's one of
Yeah.
his era's most prolific French actors.
Mm.
Lots of films. They're just a couple that fit within our genre. And then finally, rounding that out, we've got Horst Janssen, who plays Commander Lauch,
Yeah, I think
Lux,
so. Looks.
Laux,
Yeah.
Laux, maybe. German listeners can correct me on that one. He's the German sub-commander.
The big bad.
He's commanding this marauding U-boat, who in the opening scene machine guns lots of
Yeah.
um, lots of
Decimates
survivors. He
O'Toole's crew,
does.
doesn't he?
Um, he was in You Can't Win 'Em All, which is a film that we're probably going to cover in Mech Month at some point,
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
Charlie Bronson.
The one in the
And
one where it's in Greece.
yes,
Yeah.
that's the one.
Is that the one?
Then he was also in The Mackenzie Break in 1970, and Shout at the Devil, of course, in 76, which we covered a couple of months ago. He was also in Breakthrough in 1979 and The Last Days of Patton in 1986, which was, of course, the much needed sequel to the original Patton film.
Yeah, we were all crying out for that one, weren't we?
Yeah,
Didn't it do quite well though?
it
I
did.
can't
No,
remember.
I mean,
Yeah.
Judge C. Scott returns
Yeah.
for it, and it's not bad.
That sounds like a threat. George C. Scott returns. Ah!
As Patton, that wouldn't be a good thing. Like,
No, no.
he
Don't
really
slap
embodies that
me.
role. Yeah,
Ah! Yeah.
but yeah, that rounds out cast. It's, as I said, it's a small cast this
Very
week.
lean, isn't it?
We've got a couple of
Yeah.
supporting actors in terms of Gem U-boat crew, but they don't have a lot of dialogue. There isn't anyone really on the island. It's principally
Yeah.
it's the two white
Well, you
characters
get
that O'Toole
O'Toole's
talks to.
mate who turns
Oh,
up,
the actual like pilot of
the
the
pilot.
aircraft,
Yeah.
the lieutenant. Yeah, he does. He arrive. He's kind of like rescued and tells O'Toole there's a U-boat
He's in
up the
like two
river.
scenes and he's blown up.
Yeah, and then he's
Like
shot like
it's shocking.
in his bed, isn't
Yeah.
he? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Like really bad baddies in this one. Like they do a
yeah.
lot to make you not like the U-boat crew, but
They
then they
do.
don't do enough at the same time. Like
I know. I mean,
it's weird.
the problem with the film is a lot of the characters are very hollow. Like there is no
Yeah.
real body to them. In
Okay.
terms, they're quite hollow in my
See, I quite
opinion.
like that about it though.
Mm.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
So production this week. So the film is directed by Peter Yates, four-time Oscar nominated and BAFTA winning English director, who cut his teeth as an assistant director in the 50s and 60s, working with some very recognizable names to war movie fans, including Terence Young, Guy Hamilton, and J. Lee Thompson on the guns of Navarone. Supposedly turning down the chance to direct The Godfather to make this movie.
Wow.
I know, right? Incredible. And
Fucked it on that one, didn't he?
I know a little bit. Well, I mean, did he? Because that's just maybe
Well, I mean,
that's
Yes,
You know,
true. And would The Godfather
been as
have
impactful.
been the same
If
film?
it would they've had Pacino and co. If Yates had directed, who knows? But his own directing credits include Robbery, the Stanley Baker film about a train robbery, Bullet with Steve McQueen,
Classic.
I know, and The Friends of Eddie Coyle, starring Robert Mitchum, which is an absolute fantastic gangster film, crime film from the mid 70s. I absolutely recommend to everyone because Mitchum gives a great performance and it's a great film. It's he gets in with gun runners, Matt. You'd like it. There's a lot of 70s
Mm,
firearms in it.
nice.
Um,
Nice.
it's very, very good. And then he later directed The Deep and the cult classic Krull. So quite a varied career. But
Fair.
you know, very, very consummate professional because you don't get 4 Oscar noms for nothing.
No.
Um, no, the screenplay was by Sterling Siliphant, who adapted Max Cato's book of the same name that was released in 1969. Siliphant's works include The Poseidon Adventure and Towering Inferno, so no stranger to an
Yeah.
adventure film.
Wow. Okay. Mm.
Mm. Cinematography was by Oscar nominee Douglas Slocum OBE, who famously was the cinematographer on the first 3 Indiana Jones movies, which is, amazing. He
The good
worked
ones.
yeah, in the Second World War, he worked as a cameraman for the Ministry of Information, where he shot footage of the Fleet Air Arm. So it's quite apt for this
Ah.
one.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
And he also worked on as a cinematographer, The Captive Heart, The Lavender Hill Mob, Guns at Benghazi, Italian Job, and Never Say Never Again, amongst others.
Nice.
What a back catalogue! And yeah, as Matt said, the film was originally a vehicle for Frank Sinatra when Paramount bought the rights to the book in 1969. And Siliphant said this about working on the film. Our purpose was to make a flat out statement about the absurdity, the meaninglessness of war. So we went for minimal sound, minimal dialogue, a kind of intense fumbling toward death, towards a showdown between enemies who have no further reason for enmity except the blind stupidity and vengefulness of Peter O'Toole's character.
Disagree.
Fair enough. The U-boat was played by a Venezuelan submarine, former USS Tilefish.
Do you mind? That's cast. I could. I.
I thought I'd catch you out there. And and the amphibious plane was played by a Grumman duck, which was filling in for possibly a fairy sea fox, but I
Hmm.
wasn't too sure what ship was
Was
sunk, so I couldn't really
was
work out what it would
was the
be.
plane and the U-boat in any other films?
No, they
No.
weren't. No, it's
Oh, okay.
one hit
They haven't got a
wonders. Yeah,
filmography then. Okay.
yeah. They got their SAG membership, did this movie, and they
Yeah.
dipped. You know,
Fair enough. Fair enough.
yeah. They're in the retirement home for war movie vehicles, along with all the wooden Shermans for a bridge too far. Um, sitting on the front porch. The film was filmed in early
Like,
1970 in Venezuela and Malta, and at Pinewood Studios and Twickenham Studios. The budget was 5 million. I can't find the box office take this week, but the film was reported to be quite a big box office bomb. And
yeah.
interestingly, it was road showed in the UK about a week after, which isn't something a general release gets. Usually, it was road showing a movie was done whiles out like quite a while after back then. I think so.
Hmm.
Weird,
Interesting.
weird marketing. It was released in the UK on January 15th, 1971, and July 1st in the US. And our retro review this week comes from Roger Ebert again, July 29th, 1971, and I'll read you a little extract. Murphy's War is an ambitious attempt at a thoughtful action movie, but its thought and action don't connect very well, and the ending is as unsatisfactory as it is inevitable. Apart from the flying sequences, then the movie exists solely on the level of Murphy's fanatic compulsion to sink that sub. It's possible, I suppose, that the sub deserves sinking, but all of the deaths it's responsible for are legitimate wartime killings, so there aren't any atrocities. Then, too, by the time Murphy has his way, the war is over, so we're left with an expensively mounted movie, potentially a good one, that doesn't seem to know what to make of itself.
Holy shit, Roger. I don't think machine gunning
I
survivors
know.
is a legitimate thing to do in war.
I
Like
chose
I
that to
think
get your
the
reaction to
Geneva
that.
Convention kind of
I
frowns
know.
upon like shooting unarmed combatants.
Roger in the cinema, like being, yeah, it's legitimized this war,
He was a hard
Crikey,
bastard.
O'Reilly. Yeah, I know.
No,
Big
but I mean,
bad.
otherwise a good review,
No,
to be
it's
honest.
yeah, not a bad one again from the one of the all-time great reviewers. And what did you guys think? The retro review was back with a bomb, with a plum, and we had a nice little roundup of OWRs. So AD Bond goes with Survivor, Brian Williams Obsession, Bill 1940 Medal Campaign underrated, Very Frank good, Light Fingered Fred goes with this is a fucking classic. Sorry, that was too many words. Ash Brown says Amma's Duck, like as in Amazing Duck. Austin J. Ruddy goes with Sad, Daz W, Camouflage, uh, Stephen Adcock, Airworthy, Pete the Paint, Torpedo, and Steve Metcalf ends this week with O'Toole Tastic. Some good ones.
Yeah, some very good
I
ones.
think this movie's a little bit underrated. I'll go with it.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
Mm. So there we go. I think we're into the alley tally.
I think we are.
It's time for Alley Tally on Fighting on Film.
Matt, since you're back from Las Vegas, yeah, alley tally is yours as a treat.
Um, oh, thanks, mate. Well, as you say, the U-boat is represented by a um, former U.S.
To be
Navy
played by, don't take away its only credit.
played by, sorry, it's portrayed
Yeah.
um, by the renowned thespian USS Tilefish, who at that point had moved to Venezuela and become ARV Carite S11, an illustrious career.
Yeah, he had to do that for the SAG membership. There was
Right?
another
Yeah. Well,
submarine called
he couldn't
Tilefish that had that
exactly,
name.
exactly.
So he needed to
He
zhuzh it
needed
up a
to
bit
change
for
his
the
name. Yeah,
stage.
needed a new stage name. Yeah, I mean that was pretty cool seeing that. It's mocked up to like I think like a Type 9 U-boat or some
It's
such.
very imposing. It does what it needs to
It
do.
does,
I've
yeah.
got to admit.
It's the conning tower's quite tall, and they mount a nice twin mount
Yeah,
MG-34 on there,
yeah.
and there's a couple of Vulcans. Um,
I always appreciate a
Also,
movie when it makes a just makes a vehicle seem menacing. Like
yeah,
I
no, it's a
appreciate
skill. That
that
is a skill.
when that happens. Yeah.
Mm.
And I do feel like,
Um,
well, how's Murphy gonna knock this U-boat out on his own?
right,
Because it's a big
right.
fucker. You know,
Mhm.
like it's the only way I can put it. Um,
The floating crane was a World War II landing craft tank,
yeah, really
which
cool
is
that.
nice. Yeah,
Yeah, I
nice.
like that.
Probably the most screen time a landing craft tank has had
Yeah.
ever. Um, and
That's
that kind
probably
of
true, actually.
yeah, it
It's
is. I've got
probably
to be,
quite
hasn't it?
true.
And that kind of it's Louis's house.
Maybe up until maybe before The Great Escaper, it's probably that. This
Mhm.
and that. Yeah.
What else is in there? I just like the fact that when the landing party landed, they were all like properly equipped, which I'm sure you'll
Yeah.
mention because you mentioned it while you were watching it. You're like, oh my God.
I did. Isn't that was in the fourth chat? I
I'll
just
let
oh
you talk
how
about that in a
yeah,
second,
yeah,
but
yeah.
the
It's
only
very
other thing I
brief.
was
It's
going to
not
point
even
out,
like that deep.
no,
It's
they just kind of like land and kill
yeah,
everyone, then
yeah.
go, which is
They're
yeah,
so evil in that scene.
they really are.
They're commando book baddies in that scene, and that's why I like it.
The um the the duck is apparently, according to some of the commentary I saw online, is painted with a very early roundel for the Fleet
Oh,
Air Arm, but it's
nice.
the color of it is very like a very dark late war, a very
Mm,
late war color scheme
interesting.
that they've gone for, which I thought was quite interesting.
It played,
And
the,
also
the duck played the role of the fairy fairy sea fox
the
very
Sea
well.
Fox, yes.
You would
Oh,
be hard
absolutely.
pressed to notice it looked nothing like a fairy sea fox.
It's convincing
So
in the role.
so much
Yeah.
is the acting ability of the
Yes.
Grumman duck.
I mean, it's a tragedy that its acting career never continued.
I know.
But I believe it does survive at an American air museum.
Oh, good.
That's
Hopefully
good.
it'll get a lifetime Oscar nomination this year.
I mean, at the very least, like an Emmy or something. Who knows?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Imagine
Um,
dragging out a Grumman at the Oscars. It's just putting the mic up to it. It's just nothing. Cut to
It
commercial.
starts its engine.
Yeah.
Moving away from this surrealist
Tarfish
nonsense.
gets up and slaps it.
O'Toole wears a pretty cool little boiler suit for most of the film.
I love it. It's
The Royal
great.
Navy. His like rating patch is the
Yeah.
air mechanic engines. So it's got
Yeah.
like the propeller and the E on it, which is pretty cool. That's about all I have.
Oh, fair enough. So jumping off of O'Toole's jumpsuit thing that he's got on, mechanic's boiler suit. I shout out to his pumps, his like 70s sort of Conversey looking pumps. They take an absolute battering in the movie. Like I was like, just, Peter O'Toole was like, I want to be comfy. Don't want no boots, please. I want to be comfy, thank you. And like, I just loved it. It was great. Added a lot to the character. Like he's meant to be this sort of
My God.
raggedy guy.
Right.
What do you mean, my God?
Touching here, like, oh yeah, it really adds depth
No, I'm
to
not.
his
I
character.
think it does because he's meant to be this like no nonsense tough bloke, and I think he would dress like that. Like
Okay.
I like the
Okay.
characterization.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Matt learning today that you can characterize people through their costume. It's what it's fucking there for. Christ. I didn't get a drama performance and theatre arts degree for nothing, Matt. Come on.
Yes, the pumps are great.
Yeah, they are. I like them. I wasn't expecting to see him, so I thought he'd be wearing boots. But I was like, oh, I think it's cool. Anyway, the Kriegsmarine, as Matt said,
True highlight.
have the right pouches for the sailors with the K98Ks. They've got like the leather boxy type pouches, and the ones with the MP40s have the MP40 stick mag pouches. And I think for a blooming long time, like it's the first time we've seen lads like with the right belt kit on in a 70s war film. Like it's a hell of a long time since I think we've had it on the show. Not in terms of like movies, obviously there are some that get it right, but it blew me away for like Kriegsmarine in a in a movie that really wouldn't have mattered if they just had belts or not even belts at all, just carrying rifles. It was just nice to see.
No, that's true.
You know, someone somewhere did care about the costume department clearly did care about getting it right.
They were like, we've nailed it with O'Toole's Converse. Yeah. Now we're gonna knock it out of the park with some correct belt kit for the Nazis.
Robbie's impressed. Wait till he sees the scene when they.
Someone's gonna finally appreciate this in about 40 years' time on a podcast. Podcast is like a radio program, but it's on the what's the internet? The internet. Well,
Christ,
we are being very surrealist today.
We very much are.
Moving on.
So it's all really nice. Another thing that I think really helped the sort of what's the word, like the world building of the movie, because you're so far removed from the war. You're not actually in a war zone. You're in some random island that the ship's just got sunk off of. It's sort of just all, sort of happening around
like Equatorial South America.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So one, it was nice to see that, the acknowledgement of the fact the Navy were out in that area, which was nice. But then also really nice to hear Chester Wilmot's war reporting later in the movie, because I felt that really grounded things. Because it's
saying that the war's over.
So the war's over, but also reminding you that it's a world war. Like the movie might be here, but there is this massive thing going on that's affected everyone, but so far away.
She had some cracking crystals to pick that up, didn't she?
Well, she did. Yeah. The lads at Market Garden would have been screaming out for them. They all went to Venezuela. Oh dear, I seem to have sent the crystals from Market Garden to Venezuela. Oh dear. Oh well, can't stop now. Let's get in my Dakota. And the line about hope I'm not stealing it from you for Ali Tally, but the line about him making bombs with his dad.
The line itself, that's actually one of my favorite scenes.
We'll leave it.
By watching my daddy make them for a noble cause.
Amazing line.
Was quite the.
It adds so much depth to the character.
That does add a good bit of depth, actually. Yeah, it's one of the few scenes that does.
Yeah, it really does. And everything's quite, to just round off my Ali Tally this week, everything's quite commando booky for me. It's quite Valiant, like annual. It's bit boy's own. Like it feels like a very straight commando type plot. Man blown up
Yeah.
at sea. Man wants
Mhm.
revenge, and
Yes.
I appreciate it for that. So let's get into favorite scenes.
Hello there. Sorry to interrupt. I wanted to let you know that you can now join our supporting cast over on Patreon. As thanks for your support, you'll be able to help us pick films, submit questions for guests, have first pick on brand new and exclusive merch, and much more. Thank you for your support. Now back to the show.
The floor is yours, Matt, because I nicked your part of yours at
No,
the
no,
end of
not
the
at
alley
all.
tally
Yeah,
there.
I like that scene where he decides he's going to try and destroy the U-boat, because the U-boat is essentially, it's hiding in a river inlet where it's not expected to be, and it's probably heading out of that river and raiding commerce and then hiding
Yeah,
back in the river. Is the essential what it's kind of like hinted at, I think. And he kind of finds the duck after the flying officer is rescued, and he tells him it's up the river, go find it. And he goes and finds it, and he gets it back into working order. And then he does that reconnaissance flight where he discovers the U-boat in the river, confirms its location, and then he has to work out how he's going to destroy it. Because I get the feel from the dialogue and the way the film structures it that there are no other Royal Navy units. There's nothing else in the
yeah.
area that could possibly stop
They're
it.
that remote,
Um,
you know.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
guess by that kind of the war, you could theorize that in the in the terms of the movie, well, everyone's gone this way because the war's going over, so everyone's sort of pulled back. Maybe
mm.
it's like it works.
Yeah. And then they work out what they're going to do to make a bomb. So they gather up some big glass jugs and fill them with petrol. And then they break into one of the Louis' sheds, which is owned by the company, to um, I think he says the company uses it to cap wellheads that are on fire,
Yeah,
or put out
something like
wellhead
that.
fires. So I assume it's an oil company thing, and they strap those to the bottle. And then there's a cool little shot of them melting cordite from some of the belted ammunition that's
Yeah,
from the
it's
back of the
nice.
duck. Um,
'Cause it
in
doesn't have an
from like
armament, does it? It's like the gun's been lost
yeah,
to
it
time.
looks.
Yeah,
I mean, a real duck would have had a 30 cal in the rear.
yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
entirely sure what a sea fox would have had.
I'm not sure.
Um, But in the film, it looks like it's an aerial Lewis gun that's in the back and it's damaged. And
Yeah,
O'Toole kind of like looks at it when he climbs onto the aircraft, and he's like, "That's knackered,"
yeah.
kind of thing. Um, so
Which,
he takes
yeah.
go on.
No, it's fine. No, no, no. Worry.
So he takes the ammunition, he melts the cordite down to make a fuse, and they sort of like test the fuses by seeing how many seconds they burn for, and that's all quite cool because
All
you
very
need a
A-team, isn't it?
yeah, there just wasn't any montage music over it, thankfully.
No. Well,
That's
there was
so
a
it was
little
a
bit of like jazzy type, wasn't
oh
there?
yeah, so there's on the phonograph, yeah,
Mm,
on the record player. But yeah, it has that, Louis turns to him and says, how did you learn to make bombs? And he says, by watching me daddy make them for a noble cause. In
really,
his very
really
broken Irish accent.
very broken. Christ. Yeah. It dips. It at the start of the movie it really dips in and out, but then by the midpoint, I think they must have shot that later because he does hold it a lot longer. But the first few scenes he got me and my wife were watching it. We had Scouse, Lily Savage, and like sort of north, just generic north and in and out.
Yes,
It was
absolutely.
very bizarre. I
I
think
don't
this
know
is
what part of Ireland he was going for. I'm gonna
God,
guess Southern Ireland, generally. Like a
yeah,
malaise of
I think
Irish,
so. It must
Southern
have been
Irish county.
where O'Toole's dad had come from, because his dad was Irish, wasn't he?
Perhaps, who knows?
Yeah.
Or he was
Um,
just doing his best.
because isn't this the second or first time he actually does an Irish accent in a
I think
movie?
it's I think it is the first time he does one. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
It shows. You know.
he does it far better in later films.
Yeah, he does. But
Fair
by
to
the
him.
end of the movie, it's fine. Like, so I think maybe he's
Well, he
working on
says
it.
so little throughout the film. It's
Yeah.
all he says is like Mrs. Jesus bastards.
Yeah.
That's 90% of his dialogue right there.
And he
He doesn't
shouts half of
actually
it
say a
as
great
well.
deal.
So
Yeah, he does.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's great in
Um,
it. Like I love he's just playing this manic nutter who wants to blow a
mhm,
U-boat up. It's that's all you need. You
true.
know.
What about you? What's your favorite scene?
My favorite scene is right near the end. Well, it is the end, not right near the end. It is the end. So Murphy's finally got this U-boat where he wants him. So he's had the failed attempt with the rigged bomb release thing on
Yes.
the Grumman. Sorry, the
The duck. Can you
sword.
get the actor's
But
name correct, please?
yeah, sorry, Mr. Grumman. Um, so he's done that and it failed. But he managed to like sort of hit near it, but not actually the boat itself, because it's got the anti-aircraft guns on it. He can't get too close.
I mean, it's a wonder he got even near it, to be
Oh
honest.
yeah,
You're
it's
lighting a
great.
fuse while flying a plane that you can't actually fly a
Yeah.
plane, but you're flying a
O'Toole did all
plane.
his own stunts. He flew that plane.
He did. He dropped those bombs.
It's incredible. And he said,
Poor man.
if you want to see real
If you want,
act, not if you want to see real terror, not acting, watch
if you
me
want
in
to
that
see Peter
scene
O'Toole learn to fly a Grumman duck in real time, watch Murphy's
while
War.
smoking the fattest cigarette you've ever seen. It's fantastic. I think that cigarette was there for actually calming his nerves, not for the character. It's fantastic. So he's done that, and it didn't go very well. And he gets his mate's barge. Asks him, "Is the barge you've got still running?" And he
He's
goes,
such a
"Yeah, yeah."
passive character, Louis. He's like, yeah, go on.
He's just there to say
He's
yes or
like,
no. Yeah,
the doctor's there shouting, don't
the
let
war's
help him
over. Oh,
launch,
yeah,
Louis. And Louis like, okay, no. And then he does. And then
yeah.
he's like, why do you want my house? And he's like, I want to ram it into a U-boat. And he's like, okay,
But
go
then,
on
but
then.
then Louis does leave. He has a moment of
He
clarity where
does.
he's like, "This is nuts. This is insane." It's
Yeah.
where he's trying to get him to haul the torpedo up onto the crane so we can drop it on the sub that's
Hmm.
beached.
Yeah.
Finally, like, got him where he wants him. So he gets there, and by this point, he's just a manic figure, like working on adrenaline and one track, single-mindedness. He isn't thinking properly. He just wants revenge for his mates that died, and got gunned down in the water.
Hmm.
So he finally drops the torpedo on top, and you get this really tense scene where before that, where he's looking to see if there's an air bubble. Is the sub still there? Is it moved? Oh God. Finally comes up, lets the torpedo go, get a huge explosion, and then as he's trying to run away, the crane falls back and stops
Yeah.
him and traps
Twice.
him twice. Yeah. So
Did you
he
notice
then,
that?
yeah,
Balls on him
the
twice.
the cut isn't great, I must admit.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's fine. Um, I suspended belief by this point now. Don't worry.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah.
Like, so he gets dragged down with the landing craft barge and dies,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
that's your
Just
film. That's the end of the
final
film.
words of Jesus.
Yeah, literally.
Just
Like,
shouts
and
Jesus.
I thought it was great because it's exactly kind of where you're at. Sorry, it's come full circle. You are
Mm.
you are where you started. So you start with men being dragged under the water, killed, dead at sea. You end with that,
Hmm.
and I thought it was a really great circular arc. I thought it was
Yeah.
fat. It was great. I
Yeah.
think and him getting away
Not
with
bad.
it for me wouldn't have been good. Wouldn't have been
Well,
nice.
apparently in the novel he did.
Yeah, in the novel he did. So
Mm.
obviously, Silliphant did have rewrites, not a straight adaptation. And I think it works with what Sycophant was trying to say that war isn't nice.
Mm.
And it's a bittersweet ending in terms of yes, he doesn't live to see another day, but I think it would have been worse if he'd have got away with it because the war is over. Like, yes, these men have committed crimes and stuff, but you witnessed it. So if you wanted to get them just desserts, you could have taken it to your superiors and said, "Look, I saw a U-boat crew gun my men down in the water. They also killed a man in a in a ward. I have witnesses. Like it there's more going on
Shot
there.
up an entire town of
Absolutely
civilians.
leveled a town, yeah. But
Yeah.
it's very it's just sort of it's just grim, and I appreciate that about it. So I think we're
Mm.
we're getting into final thoughts, aren't we here, really?
I think so.
So Matt, what did you think of Murphy's War this week?
Some good flying and acrobatic sequences, although I don't know how believable it is that, O'Toole's character would be able to learn how to fly a plane and then celebrate discovering the U-boat by doing a complex series of loops and barrel rolls.
I
Um,
mean, I assume he just picked it up.
Yeah, no, he's a natural
The
pilot.
natural. Yeah.
It's innate within him. He was born that way. He just has the skill. And then he struggles to land it. But anyway, um, those
Oh,
sequences are great,
yeah,
and
they are.
it's probably the best look at a Grumman
Oh yeah.
J2F duck that you'll get
Mm.
in cinema. And that's kind of cool. I think the fact that it's a biplane, seaplane, that's pretty
It is. Yeah.
that's
That's
good,
very
isn't it?
reminiscent of Shout at the Devil, that flying sequence.
Oh well, I mean, if we're talking about influences, I get massive Africa Queen vibes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Shout
yeah,
the
yeah.
Devil. There's a little bit of Heaven Knows Mr. Allison when he's talking to
Oh
the
yeah.
the doctor.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and then it's literally it's a solid like Moby Dick remake when it comes to the revenge aspect of it
That's a
because
really good way
he,
of summing it up.
he's
Yeah.
Captain Ahab and he really wants to get that whale. And this time the whale has orcans. Um,
Yeah.
and it works. I mean, as a concept, it certainly does work, and we've seen it before in different forms. But it is a revenge picture, and you can see why he wants that revenge. I just don't feel like they. I don't feel like O'Toole and the characters sell the need for that revenge. He doesn't talk about it throughout the film enough for me. If he'd
Right.
had a couple of sequences where, he talked a little bit more about the crew or even the flying officer that was,
Mm.
murdered in his bed. Um, just a little bit more, brought he does bring some of that energy that famously has in Lawrence of Arabia, where he has that manic
Episode. Yeah.
disconnectedness. He does bring a little bit of that to Murphy's War in some of those scenes, but for me, it feels relatively flat in a lot of places where it just goes from A to B and doesn't really convey the depths of the desire for revenge that
Right.
you would
Okay.
expect because we can see that he's really going for he wants revenge for all those
Mm.
men he saw killed, and that makes complete sense for the character, but it just feels a little bit flat and doesn't quite um sort of like emote why he's so desperate for that.
Right. I
And he
get
has
you.
sort of jovial moments where it kind of undermines that drive for revenge a little bit for me. Um, and I feel like the characters just don't have enough to do at times. I know that the doctor's there to be the moral conscience. She's the Quaker, literally, and she's there saying, don't do this. The war's over, or don't do this. You don't need to stoop to their level. That kind
Mm.
of thing. Um, and that makes sense, but we don't know why she wants to be like that. We haven't like got any of her backstory to explain why she's a Quaker doctor on this island alone, you know, with this
Mm.
community. Um, I'm probably thinking a little bit too much into it for her character. We get a little bit more for Louis' character.
Yeah.
He's a lonely man. He's been on this island for 6.5 years. We find out a fair amount about his backstory.
Mm.
And that gives that weight, that scene at the end where he decides, I'm not going to help you anymore. And he jumps off the boat and walks away. That gives that moment where he walks away and says, "We're both lonely men, and history won't
Yeah.
remember us. The only difference between you and I is I know that."
Yeah. It's a great
Um,
line to go out on.
it's a really good line, but at the same time, the fact that we haven't seen O'Toole's character cemented in the fact that he has some sort of delusion of grandeur, or that he has this burning desire for revenge, kind of doesn't it the line doesn't hit as hard as it could,
Right.
I thought.
Okay. See, I'm opposite you this week. So
hmm
I enjoyed it for what it is. I think
I did
no,
not
I
enjoy
I
it.
get what you
I didn't
mean. Yeah,
dislike the
yeah.
film. I just
Um,
thought the
you got more problems
execution
with it than I have,
could
I
have lifted
think.
it ever so slightly
Yeah.
to.
See, I really like the fact it's this lean, all A plot, no,
Mhm.
all killer, no filler type thing.
Oh yeah, if they'd done like a weird like romantic
Yeah, I
subplot
was
with the
worried
doctor,
about
that
that.
would have that would
And
have
I like the
been
fact
a
early on
real
he sort of just,
turn off.
it doesn't
Yeah.
happen. He sort of just pushes her away. Like there is no chemistry, but
No.
the movie could
No.
have forced it.
Yeah, that's very true.
A lesser sort of screenwriter would have forced something in there.
Mm.
I think, even if it was or wasn't in the book. I don't think it is. Um, but I don't know. I really liked it. I really resonated with O'Toole's character. Like that ship was. I feel like that ship was all he had. He put all his effort
Mm.
into doing what he did on the ship because maybe life at home wasn't good, or the Royal Navy helped him get out of a bad place, perhaps. Or just what he'd done on the ship during the war. It's really sort of
He was born in somewhere in Ireland, and he was made
he
in
was
the Royal
made in
Navy,
the Royal Navy.
right?
Yeah, yeah. No, yeah, but like great use of that, by the way. The MOD checks in the post. I don't know. I just really resonate with him. I'm like, it's all you've got, mate, isn't it?
Hmm.
Like I felt sorry for him, like in a way, or else like you think this is what you need to do. Well, you don't need to do it. You could just chill on the island till the end of the war. But no, you can't let it go. And he's like a dog with a
No,
bone, like dog
it's
with
that Moby
his
Dick
yeah,
sort of
wouldn't
drive
let
for
go.
revenge, isn't it?
I really like that, and I kind of like the fact where at the end his mate's saying to him, you're not going to be remembered for this. And I think Murphy knows that. And I think he's absolutely fine with it. He just wants to do it for personal reasons.
Yeah, he just
And
wants the
I
revenge, doesn't he?
just wants his mates to be retribution for his friends. And I enjoyed that. I think it was nice that it wasn't overdone. Like he could
Hmm.
have really gone over the top with the character. And I think I would have started to be annoyed by him. But because I sort of enjoyed how O'Toole was doing it, and the dialogue
Yeah,
wasn't too heavy on it. It really
absolutely.
worked for
Oh
me.
yeah, the characterization could have gone too far with it.
Mm,
Certainly,
mm.
I
And
definitely
the
agree there.
fact as
But
well that the the Kriegsmarine, the baddies in this are
mm,
bloody bad. Like,
yeah,
so the movie does give you reasons to not want them to be around.
you can certainly see why he wants revenge.
Yeah,
It's
exactly. So not
justified
only
in that
yeah,
drive
they
for
shoot up the
revenge.
town, they kill people in their beds. Like they are typical like commando book big bad men. No, I thought it was absolutely a solid picture. You know,
Mm.
I enjoyed it. No, and thanks to the patrons for picking it. But I think it's interesting when you and me don't see eye to eye because it does rarely happen. I think.
I don't disagree with your points, and I
No,
just
mine with
kind
yours
of
either.
wanted a
You're yeah.
little more, and it would have
Okay,
elevated it. I think
that's
perhaps it
interesting
would have.
because a lot of the retro reviews that I didn't pick, they said that they felt it was
Mm,
lacking.
I mean, perhaps it would be a more revered, more remembered film if there
Perhaps.
was a little more characterization. But again, as you say, it could have easily gone too far. And you can read in, I mean, the subtlety of O'Toole's performance, you can read in, once you get
Mm.
past that accent, you can read in some of his,
It,
his
it
subtext
it
and,
would have
and
been
background.
fine with him just being from Leeds, like Total
Right.
was.
Yeah,
Like it would have been fine. So that was Murphy's War, 1971. I think the consensus was Matt wanted a little more from it. I was absolutely fine with it. And
pretty much.
sometimes it's just like that on the show. So please do follow along with Masters of the Air, our review series, if you're watching. If you
Yes,
haven't watched
dropping
yet,
at the same time as the episodes as they come out. Watch along with us, in essence.
mm, mm. And if you're still with us, next week we have a very, very special guest on the show. We have none other than legendary military advisor Dale Dye coming on the show for his second appearance on
Now
Fighting
Guy's
on
coming
Film.
back. It's going to be good.
So excited. We're going to be talking Masters of the Air, maybe a few other things as well. You never know. So do come back and listen to us for that one. So all that's left to say is follow us on the socials, X, Facebook, Instagram, whatever you like. Give us a follow, give us a review, and thanks for listening. And we'll catch you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye bye.